Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. And my question is to the Minister for Energy and Emissions Reduction. The question is, why did it take a recession for this minister to finally achieve a reduction in Australia's greenhouse gas emissions? When he released the latest national greenhouse gas inventory in May, the minister boasted about reducing emissions by 26 million tonnes in 2020 compared to 2019. This is the first significant reduction in annual emissions since this government came to office. But the reduction was entirely due to the fact that the economy went backwards last year. Australia fell into its first recession in nearly 30 years under this government's watch. Hundreds of thousands of people lost their jobs. Thousands of businesses lost their livelihoods. Whole industry sectors were closed down. Australia's economy shrank by 6.4% in real terms in the March quarter of 2020. So it was not surprising to anyone but the minister that emissions were also down 5% in 2020. They were down for all the wrong reasons, not because of government policies to support investment in renewable energy, not because of government policies to drive the take-up of electric vehicles, not because of government policies to boost energy efficiency in businesses and households, and not because of government policy to drive the innovation and new technologies that will reduce emissions, create new jobs and grow our economy. Emissions were down for the first time since this Liberal government came to office, not for any of those reasons, but because of the sharpest economic downturn since the Great Depression. The economic contraction cut emissions by 26 million tonnes in 2020. A counterfactual analysis using the government's own figures suggests that if GDP had grown last year in line with pre-COVID forecasts, emissions would have increased by several million tonnes. Because this Liberal government has economic policy and emissions policy around the wrong way. Labor knows we need to grow the economy at the same time as we reduce emissions. Under the former Labor government, Australia's real GDP increased by 17%, employment increased by 8.7%, and greenhouse gas emissions fell by 14%. Let me repeat that. Labor grew the economy by 17%, grew jobs by 9%, at the same time as we reduced emissions by 14%. By contrast, this Liberal government has reduced emissions only by shrinking the economy and shrinking the number of jobs. It's a failure of environmental policy and it's a failure of economic policy, because as the economy recovers, the new jobs that will come under the government leading the way on renewable energy and low pollution technologies will not be there. And the government's lack of effective climate and energy policies mean that as the economy recovers, the reduction in emissions will stall at best and go into reverse at worst. The government has no policies for sustaining reducing Australia's emissions, and it has no policies for growing the low-carbon economy and creating the low-pollution jobs of the future. Instead, from this government, we have 23 energy policies. We have a government crab-walking towards net zero emissions by 2050, but won't commit to it as a target. We have a technology roadmap with no actual policies to deliver the technologies that are supposedly going to provide the abatement that they're counting on to reach their 2030 target. So all we've got from this government is shambolic announcement after shambolic announcement. They're more interested in wedge politics and politics of cold culture wars than delivering concrete policies that will effectively reduce our emissions, grow jobs, grow new industries while protecting existing industries. And I'll hazard a guess that those on the opposite side will talk a bit about coal and gas in their contributions, and that's fine. But when it comes up to standing with coal miners on the issues that impact them, they're nowhere to be seen. Because what coal miners care about is security at work. What coal miners care about is making sure that if someone is on a labour hire contract next to them, they get paid the same amount as the permanent worker. Because when it comes to things like that, this government goes missing. When it comes to stand up for coal miners, they miss. They stand up for coal companies, but they don't give a fig about coal miners. And that is the truth of it, because when they're given the chance to support coal miners and stand up against the casualisation of the coal mining industry, they're nowhere to be seen. In fact, they stand up for coal mining companies and labour hire shonks rather than standing up for coal miners. So my questions to the minister are, can he confirm that his department's latest projections are for Australia's greenhouse gas emissions to be 478 million tonnes in 2030? Can he further confirm that this means the government will exceed its 2030 emissions reduction target by 35 million tonnes? Is the minister aware that 129 countries have now committed to net zero emissions by 2050? And can the minister explain why, under this government, Australia is one of only 6 industrialised countries that are refusing to commit to net zero by 2050, standing shoulder to shoulder